everyone. Good morning from Canada. Good afternoon in Reykjavik, I guess. Good evening in Asia. Really lovely to see you all. And I guess it's almost good evening to our friends in Ajman as well. So lovely to see you all. Sanjaya, welcome back to our third webinar. And it's really a pleasure to convene this third and last of our series of 3 webinars. As you know, the first one was really an introductory where we got to know through city profiles and risk profiles, how each city is coping and addressing risks. And the second webinar was where we really dove into the data and looked at the data-driven insight reports on resilience, and each city presented how their key programs are related to data outcomes and these data insights related to resilience. So it's really a pleasure to welcome you to this third webinar. And this agenda, as you have seen, is divided into 2 parts. We're going to begin with a presentation from Sanjaya, who will present examples of other cities in the MCR program, MCR2030, and how UNDRR networks are implementing resilience strategies and roadmaps around the world. And then we're going to turn to all of you again, to each of the cities, to talk a little bit about city resilience and the governance framework for that, where resilience sits in the city, how policies are implemented, which is really interesting for me as a political science prof here at U of T, you know. I'd love to think about governance in cities and how this resilience strategy is being structured. And the next part of your presentations will then delve a little bit more into the resilience roadmaps, and we're going to really take interest in that and think about the future and next steps and investment and strategies going forward. So it's really nice to see you all. In terms of this webinar, we're going to, right after it, send you a list of attendees. We're going to send you useful references and tools from the MCR site that you might find helpful in mapping the roadmaps. We're going to send you the recording of all 3 webinars as well, and then a link to the data-driven insight reports knitted together into one big report. So we'll then also be posting a press release after this webinar to share with the world what's been going on around these 3 webinars. You may wish to, and hopefully you will, repost this. And also, if you decide to post your own press release, we'd love to share that and amplify it through the WCCD network as well. So just before we begin, I know everyone's camera almost is on. We thought we would do a photo, which could be part of this press release. So if you could just turn the cameras on for a few minutes, we'll pause for a photo, and then we'll turn it over to Sanjaya. So all set? I think everyone is on. Yeah, okay.
Okay, if everyone smiles now, I will start with the photo. Wow, wonderful. We look great.
All right. Thanks, Justine. We'll share that with all of you for sure. So I'd like to now call on Sanjaya. I know most of you met Sanjaya in the first and second webinars, but just in case if anyone wasn't with us for those first 2, Sanjaya is the head of the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction based in Incheon, in the Republic of Korea, of course. And Sanjaya is also head of the Office for UNDRR, what's called Global Education and Training Institute, GETI, as it's called, where he's guided the training of over 9,000 government officials across the globe. And I know he's going to share with us some of the ideas around possible training programs and things that your staff may also be interested in over the coming months. So with that, I will turn the floor over to Sanjaya. Welcome, Sanjaya. Lovely to see you again.
Thank you, Patricia, and welcome to all. Can you just give me the permission to share my screen? I'll share the PowerPoint. So I'll just quickly go over the MCR 2030. I think most of you know about it, but just give you some examples of how things have been. Yeah, okay, so I think you can see this. So MCR 2030 is a global partnership, and it has a few core partners, World Council for City Data being one of them. And also it has a stated objective of promoting the ISO 37123 and the series. It looks at cities at three stages: stage A, where they are focused on advocacy; stage B, where they are focused on on diagnostics, using a tool. They can use any cities can use any number of tools from all the partners, but the one that we use is the scorecard, and a lot of the indicators in the ISO 37123 are derived from the scorecard. And then stage C is the final stage where they are implementing. So all the cities here today, for example, if you, I don't know if you've all joined yet the MCR 2030 or not. If you haven't, then please do. It gives you, I'll show you what it gives you access to, but you will all join at stage C. Which is the implementation stage. You've done the diagnostics. So, of course, it offers a great opportunity for learning and for exchange with other cities, with other partners, and access to all kinds of tools from all kinds of partners, including the ones, the logos you saw earlier, but also GCOM, CCFLA, and so on. So all kinds of knowledge products. Everything is available to you, plus opportunities to share your experiences with other cities around the world. And that's something that I also wanted to have kind of discussed today, because I think here there is a powerful opportunity to share. I've been listening to what you guys have been saying and what you have been doing over the last two webinars. And it is very impactful, and I think it needs to be shared with a wider audience, and we can help to provide that opportunity. So the MCR 2030 has right now about 1,555 cities, covering over 480 million global urban population, and about 400 service providers, what we call service providers. So we, UNDRR, WCCD, UNDP, we are all service providers. So there are about 400 of them. And here are just some samples of what kind of services are available for a stage A city. Again, what is available for a stage B, so looking at diagnostic tools. And stage C, of course, there are many sub-thematic areas covered, but one of them, we're just showing you some examples of access to finance. But there are others like nature-based solutions, there is infrastructure resilience, and so on. So all kinds of categories. So how have cities been using this? So one example is Lisbon, which looked at, they used the scorecard as a diagnostic tool to identify gaps in their resilience strategy. And what they did was if you see the center, the G, the bloated part, so they found about 29 gaps in their resilience, in their existing resilience work and in their strategy. They converted that into about 14 actions and then 6 projects. So projects, because then once converted, when the gaps are kind of the ideas, and then converting to projects so that they can be financed by various sources. And this is just a look at one of the projects, so what it looked like, and then they were able to get financing. This one was for 200,000 euros. But the others were over about schools, about technology, about infrastructure, and so on. We also have the example of Tegucigalpa in Honduras, which also followed a similar process. And as you can see here again, they came up with a few projects and then were able to secure funding. Nablus in Palestine. Why this example is interesting is because they worked on their own, of course, but they took support from a local university. And that's also a good practice, looking at what kind of technical support you have available in your area and using them for help. So, and you can also see the timeline. So they took about 6 months or so to do the work. In Maldives, Fuwa Mula city, again, they used the scorecard and came up with ultimately with 6 projects for implementation, which they are currently getting financed. So, of course, as I mentioned, there are tools from all the partners there. So UCLG, CLE, UN Habitat, everyone's tools are there. But some of the key tools are the scorecard, which was developed by IBM and ACOM. So we have the main scorecard, which helps to unpack your resilience strategy. But we also have addendums. For example, the health system addendum was developed along with the World Health Organization. There is a food system resilience scorecard, which was developed along with the Food and Agriculture Organization. There's a cultural heritage resilience scorecard, and then there is a scorecard for inclusion of persons with disabilities. And 2 more are in the pipeline. One is the climate scorecard, so to help understand how to integrate climate concerns in your resilience plans and strategies. And another one coming soon by fall will be the early warning indicator, looking at not at the technical aspects of the early warning systems, but looking at the qualitative aspects, the last mile linkage, the effectiveness of the early warning systems. So all of these scorecards are there, and we offer, of course, training on all of this. So going ahead, this is just some ideas. We are open to more suggestions. We have partners like ICLE and CCFLA who run trainings along with us on project preparation. We have the Climate Bond Initiative, with whom we have developed a training program on issuance of green bonds. This is available in case any of you are interested. Just let us know, or let Patricia know, or Justin, and we can arrange this training with the Climate Bond Initiative. Then there are the scorecards, there's the climate resilience, and we can also look at jointly working on experience sharing workshops, bringing all the cities here together, and also others who could learn from your experience. So one possibility could be if one of you are ready to host such an event, we can co-organize and sponsor cities to come there. So that's also something that we can look into. So with that, this is another list of resources I think you can add to what Patricia has already mentioned, and that brings me to the end of this. So if you haven't joined, please do have a look at MCR 2030, see if it makes sense, and then let us know. If you, the process to join is automatic and fairly simple, but if you need any support, let us know. Thank you, and I hand over back to Patricia.
Thanks very much, Sanjaya. Really interesting and possible ideas for the future. Thank you so very much. It's a great and robust network you're building at UNDRR. happy to have these 5 cities here becoming stronger partners in all of this. I'd like to now turn it back to Justine for the introduction of the cities and the next part of the agenda. So thanks, Sanjaya, very much.
Thanks, Patricia. So as Patricia mentioned, the presentations this morning will cover the resilience structures in the cities and the resilience roadmaps. And if you could try to keep presentations to 5 minutes, that would be much appreciated. I'll just share my screen here. And if you can all see that, I'll welcome Peter Einarsson from Reykjavik to present.
Yeah, thank you, Justine. It's nice to see you all again. I'm going to start by going over the resilience structure and the emergency management of Reykjavik. You can just jump 2 slides ahead, I think. Yeah, there. Thank you. So the emergency management has the authority to make decisions and establish emergency expenditures beyond what is stated in the budget in emergency situations, since such cases cannot tolerate delays. The City Council provides other necessary authorizations for specific financial allocations and is in an emergency state of response where it may be necessary to convene additional meetings. The emergency management of the city operates according to the emergency response plan of Reykjavik. This response plan addresses the emergency management, which is governed by an official letter of appointment. The plan is developed in collaboration with the Metropolitan Fire Department and the Civil Protection Department in the metropolitan area. In order to ensure continuous operations of the city, there needs to be a clear definition at all times of what constitutes socially important services and how they can be best ensured. So we can go to the next slide, please. So yeah, the emergency level structure is separated into 4 different color categories according to severity. They are green, which is just daily tasks or situations. These are accidents or incidents that are handled by a few responders or institutions where the daily organization of matters and equipment is sufficient to address the task. Then there's yellow, which are larger and more complex operations. These are serious accidents or incidents such as a search in one area or a need for multiple responders or institutions to fulfill the task. And then we have the red one, which are major accidents and disasters. These are highly extensive accidents or incidents such as a search and rescue in challenging conditions or across multiple areas. Requires the involvement of a large number of responders or institutions, as well as increased need for coordination and organization of public safety. And then we have the last category, which is a national emergency, which basically follows the same protocol as the previous one, the red one, but it just affects a larger area, multiple districts. So if you can go to the next slide. So here you can see the governance structure during the complex operations. There we have 2. We have the operational management of the capital region and the emergency management groups of all the municipalities in the capital region. And if you go to the next one for me, during the major accidents and national emergencies, we have 1 level additionally, which is a coordination center from the Civil Protection Department of the National Police. So, okay, so if you can go to the next slide. So now I'm going to go a bit over the resilience roadmap. Our focus today is not really on high-risk disasters happening at the moment in Reykjavik, but what we are doing is preparing for the future. We are focused on preparing for climate change and minimizing our effect on the changing climate, and also implementing some form of risk reduction into our procedures. I have a list here of goals and projects, which is not an extensive list by any means. We are developing and implementing a risk policy, including objectives, delineation of roles and responsibilities, definition of risk appetite, and execution of risk management. And we're also mapping risks in the operation of the city of Reykjavik. And then we are developing smaller scale pedestrian-friendly neighborhoods. Like I mentioned in the, I think, first webinar or second one, in our municipal plan, there's an emphasis on pedestrian accessibility and pedestrian friendliness in relation to most aspects of urban planning. What this means, can mean, is less pollution from transport, and it can also make neighborhoods more resilient in the event of some sort of disaster. And here to the right, you can see pictures taken straight from our municipal plan that show the ideal walking time for inhabitants to different kind of services. So in the 5 minutes, you have green spaces, playground, bus stops. And in the 10 minutes, you have a grocery store, a bakery, a elementary school, a healthcare center. And in the 15 minutes, you have a high school, swimming pool, gym, open nature. And then in a 20-minute one, you have a college or university or equivalent, library, cultural center, shopping center. So yeah, we are also focused on enhancing population density, amplifying investments in green initiatives. We're committed to evaluate every investment from a green perspective. This means that the city is better prepared for future climate changes and can also minimize the effect its investments has on further climate change. We are also evaluating the potential implications of the rising sea level. If you could go to the next slide. So as you can see here, our GIS team has assessed where rising sea level could have an impact on the city of Reykjavik. In this case, you can see two lines, one at a 3.5 meter rise and another at a 4 meter rise, which is definitely a high rise, but it's, yeah. So according to this assessment, some places would go under sea level. And another implication could be, and a consequence of rising sea level, is the impact it may have on the fishing industry in Iceland. We have assessed all the economic activities in Reykjavik, and the fishing industry is recognized as one of the largest sectors. Therefore, if sea-related issues continue to escalate, it could potentially affect the fish population and subsequently impact the fishing companies operating in the area. So this is just a brief overview of the structure and the roadmap. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. I'm just going to pin our next speakers here. And I'll turn it over to Marwa Al-Najjar and Iman Mustafa from Ajman.
Hello, everyone. I'm Marwa. I'm glad to meet you again today. Me and my colleague Iman, we will present the resilience structures and resilience roadmap in the Emirate of Ajman. The resilience structure helps in developing all necessary actions and requirements to respond and recover from crisis. These entities shows in this structure put future plan to face shocks and ensuring the availability of required elements. They also working together to achieve resilience in Ajman according to their roles. Emergency crisis and disaster management in Ajman is the main department who is responsible for coordinating and setting standard regulations related to emergency crisis and disaster management and developing a unified emergency response plans. It coordinates the role of concert authorities. Ajman Police maintains the security and organizing evacuation routes in Ajman to training emergency responders and aware the community to prepare to crisis by coordinating with civil defense. Civil defense also coordinates with Ministry of Education and Red Crescent to give training to community and students to deal with emergency cases. It also assists in rescue missions, restoring life in the stricken areas and forming emergency units by coordinating with National Ambulance and Ministry of Health to provide first aid to affected people or transfer them to hospital. Ministry of Education applies a distance education system by coordinating with the Ministry of Health and Emergency Crisis Management during pandemic. Ajman Statistics Center provides studies, help decision makers to know the current situation of the emirate and make the appropriate decisions. This studies is prepared by coordinating with all government entities in the Emirate of Ajman, such as Department of Economy and Development, Municipality and Planning Department, also Transport Authority. Citizen Affair Office organize public meetings with the population by coordinating with government entities as well. These meetings aim to communicate with the population in the Emirate of Ajman. And finally, Ajman municipality achieved resilience by applies the infrastructure standards in building and roads to reduce the effect or damage from natural crisis. Now I will pass the mic to my colleague Iman to.
Hi everyone, this is Iman. It's nice to be here again with you. Today, inshallah, I will show you the Ajman Resilience Roadmap. The rapid change and challenge requires more readiness and flexibility to deal wisely with challenges in the present and seize opportunities in the future and face risk of its. The population mutation, technological change, and new economic patterns cause major shift in method of managing cities and a huge challenge to the endeavors of local government and effort to join the group of better cities to live, settle, and invest. And invest without compromising their cultural and social heritage. So the resilience roadmap of the Emirates of Ajman stand based on four axes, which are future plans and projects, initiatives, and for sure the data for decision making. For the future plan, the government is working for the sector of infrastructure to developing infrastructure according to an integrated system, and the urban plan of the Ajman 2030 has been made, which aims to achieve comprehensive development and keep pace with the urban development. Regarding to the business sector, the government is going to expanding the field of export and monitoring foreign market and simulate and increase domestic production. And based on the statistic that the Emirate of Ajman considered as a youth city, the government is going to invest on this point where it's establishing youth economic councils to lead and making change to promote the principle of empowerment and joint action. And many programs will be launched that provide economic opportunities to ensure the prosperity of this important group. At the government level, the government is going to transform all over the government entities into resilience entities to operate in more efficient and effective way, which is going to increasing the number of work team of highly trained cadres in virus security, economic, social field capable to dealing with the emergency conditions, and it's foreseeing and creating the future business, enhancing the sustainability and growth of the business community and diversifying the possibilities of competitiveness and leadership. Regarding to the projects, the government of Ajman has developed an escalating budget to keep pace with the rapid change during the next 10 years in meeting the requirements of cities and regions to providing the needs of individuals in order to improve the resilience. The urban plan of the Emirates updated 3 years instead of 5 years. So the Emirates works on a network of roads and bridge, complete the data analysis project to provide qualitative studies that support strategic decision-making and applying the best international standards in development and construction. One of the development projects of the civil defense at the state level is to provide them with the list devices of mechanisms, equipments used in firefighting, develop fire prevention and safety techniques in the building and facilities. Sorry, one of the initiatives that the Emirates launched is to develop this for developing the city resilience in coming years is the Future Police courses, which is organized by Ajman Police for 18s to have enhanced the students where are in 18 years to enhance their abilities and awareness of crisis and the security and how to face these conditions and emergencies. And organizing courses on how to respond to cooperate all among all members of society to combat the fires, emergency, and so on. Also, it's worked to involve the community in development of the Emirate. As we know, data and studies are the most important factor that contribute the city's resilience and support decision making. So the surveys and the studies made in Ajman indicate, for example, the desire of the resident for more cultural and artistic activities, and which make the government and the Emirates work in this sector to improve it more, to achieve their needs, and it has the ability to predict, anticipate, and respond to permanent change and adapt those variables professionally, starting from simple day matters to major crises and challenges that can face the policy or the police by obtaining the ISO security management specification. And by this point, we are finish our presentation. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Iman and Marwa. I'll now turn it over to our colleague, Liza Ramos in Makati.
Hello, good day again to everybody. I was not able to join you last webinar, but here I am again. And at this early, I'd like to apologize for an 11 slide presentation, but I'll try to make it as quick as possible, but still comprehensible for everybody. Next slide, please. So for our institutional arrangement, our national law on disasters reduction have actually prescribed an organization, both in terms of policy development and a permanent office within the city government or the local government or any government agency in charge of disaster risk reduction and management. And on this particular slide, you can see that in terms of the arrangement, we do have our responsibilities horizontally and vertically. So the DRRM Council of the City Government of Makati is actually headed by the mayor, of course supported by our vice mayor, with 4 thematic area chairpersons. And this thematic area corresponds to the phases of disaster risk reduction and management. So for prevention and mitigation, we have our urban development department, co-vice chaired by our Department of Engineering and Public Works, and members from the different departments and offices, civil society organizations, and private sector. For the preparedness pillar, the vice chair is our office, the DRR, the Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Office, co-vice chaired by the city administrator and the Department of Interior and Local Government Makati Field Office. For response, our social welfare department is the lead, co-led still by the Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Office. And for recovery and rehabilitation, our vice chair is the Department of Engineering and Public Works, co-led by the Urban Development Department. So if you will notice, the DRRM Council is composed of the different departments and agencies with membership from the civil society organization and private sector that make up, that provide the strategic policies of the city when it comes to disaster resilience. They are also in charge, these departments and offices who are members of the DRRM Council are also in charge of implementing the actual resilience strategies that we have identified in our plan. But to support as an executive arm and as the secretariat of the DRRM Council is the DRRM office, our office. And we basically recommend the direction of the city for disaster reduction and management, of course, to the mayor and to the council. Working with the DRRM Council are the different local special bodies in the city government of Makati. So we're working with the City Development Council and the Climate Change Committee of the city for the city and disaster resilience unified and harmonized strategies of the city. And also we're working with other local special bodies like Gender Development, Makati Child Protection Council, etc. And this particular institutional arrangement actually trickles down to the community level or the ward level. In order for us to implement and achieve our vision for resilience, we also partner with different organizations locally and internationally, as you can see on the slide. Next slide, please. So just to give you an idea on our resilience planning process, our law mandates the local governments to develop our own local disaster risk reduction and management plan. And for Makati, it is a DRRM plan that has an implementation period of 2019 to 2030, anchored on international agenda. And the development of the updated DRRM plan 2019 to 2030 has a direct linkage with the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Plan and Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction. So later we'll touch on this a little bit more. But just to give you an idea, the MCR2030 and even its precedent MCR, that was launched in 2010, has actually helped the city shape its resilience planning process. We were able to incorporate and institutionalize the MCR tools in our planning process as well as in our monitoring and evaluation. As Sanjaya mentioned earlier, the MCR has helped us identify our accomplishments and identify gaps that need to be addressed in order for us to achieve the vision and the targets of the city. Next slide, please. So I would just like to give you an overview of the result of the Disaster Resilience Scorecard Assessment and how we were able to really convert it into priority programs that are incorporated in our Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Plan 2019 to 2030. This web on one side of the slide is actually a web analysis that can be generated by the Disaster Resilience Scorecard of the UNDRR MCR. And the light blue shade is the gap for each essential. So the Making Cities Resilient campaign has actually identified 10 essentials for making cities resilient, as you can see on the slide. And these 10 essentials have sub-indicators where each local government has to self-assess with different stakeholders and sectors represented by different sectors in order for us to come up with a quantitative rating or score for that particular essential. So the scoring is 1 to 5, 5 being the highest. And if you will take a look at the average for 2017, it's just 2.57 over 5, which is actually not our main concern. It's not a quantitative rating that is our main concern, but it's actually the gaps that we were able to identify because of the process of assessing through the Disaster Resilience Scorecard. And this particular accomplishment, accomplishment of the scorecard was done with the presence of the different private sector in our city, from the energy sector, from telecommunications, real estate, We also have representatives from other private sector organizations. And from these gaps, we're able to identify the priority programs, which you can see on the next slide. Next slide, please. So just to give you an overview, this is what our DRRM plan looks like, at least the summary of it. The goals of the DRRM plan are actually the same 4 out of the 7 10-day targets. And you will see that we're able to come up with 10 outcomes, which actually have corresponding priority programs. Next slide, please. And aside from, of course, the resilience assessment, we also make sure that our resilience strategies are anchored on harmonized science-based and community-based risk assessment, as you can see on the slide. Next slide, please. So this risk assessment informs our city plans, our city policies, and even our investments. Next slide, please. And these are just some of the photos of our investments for disaster risk reduction, from physical assets to human resources, financial resources, etc. Next slide, please. And this slide just shows some of the policies that we're able to formulate because of the risk assessments and the collaborative efforts of the different special bodies that work for disaster risk reduction. And this basically also enjoins the whole of society approach when we develop policies for disaster risk reduction. Next slide, please. And I will not go through this anymore, but just 2 points in our long years of investments in disaster resilience, that these 2 things that you can see on the screen are not just buzzwords for us, but are genuine realizations and learnings from our long journey in making Makati resilient. Next slide, and just this final slide, if I'm not mistaken, to promote that because of this long investment and partnership on disaster risk reduction and management, we were recognized by the UNDRR as the first resilience hub in the Philippines and Southeast Asia, and the second in the Asia Pacific region. And the 4 bullets that you can see on the screen are actually our commitment as a resilience hub. And I'd like to take this opportunity to request other cities here in our webinar now to make use of us. If there's anything that we can collaborate on, if there's anything that we can help you with, and also for you to help us with when it comes to disaster resilience road mapping, let's have this conversation and move forward to a more concrete collaboration. That ends my presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Liza, and I'm sure everyone is keen to take you up on the offer to continue collaboration. I love the line, resilience is everybody's business. I think we'll all certainly be taking that forward. I'd now like to turn it over to our colleagues in Vaughan, Kelly Sutton and Sharon Walker.
Thanks, Justine. I'm actually going to hand it over to Kathy Casitas to speak first.
Oh, apologies. Welcome, Kathy.
Yeah.
No worries, no worries. Good morning, good day, good afternoon, everybody. I'm just really going to open it up and turn it over to Sharon immediately after. Just again to say the City of Vaughan is very much thrilled to be part and parcel of this initiative. We're really taking this very seriously. This is a great thing going forward for us, and we're all learning across the board. So I thank all the presenters as well. We're sharing a lot of great information. So I just want to say thank you and open it up, but I'm going to turn it over to Sharon Walker, our colleague at the City of Vaughan. She's our manager of emergency planning. Sharon.
Good day, everyone. Cover all the bases here. So if you can turn to the next slide. Yes. My name is Sharon Walker. I'm the manager of emergency planning for the City of Vaughan. Resiliency, emergency management, and business continuity resides within my department. On a day-to-day basis, I report directly to the fire chief, and the fire chief reports to the city manager. Embedded within legislation is an emergency management program committee that is a requirement to be my oversight body on a day-to-day basis, as well as my end reporting body for emergencies. The emergency management program committee consists of all members of our senior management team from across all departments, our power utility, York Regional Police, and Vaughan Public Libraries also sit on it. This is a governance structure for business continuity planning. It is now being moved to the department level, where each department has a business continuity planning lead who report to their direct people leader, and through their deputy city manager or the city manager and my program report directly to the Emergency Management Program Committee. Any recommendations that come forward to the Emergency Management Program Committee for substantive changes to our programming, recommendations with the financial implications, and major contextual changes to our plans and procedures go from this committee onto council for approval. Next slide, please. This is our incident management system, in which all departments are represented on our emergency management group. We operate in a slightly modified version of an incident management system where we have 3 operations sectors, where a lot of other locations will have a single operations sector. The command group is headed by the Emergency Operations Center Director, who is the city manager, and authority within the emergency management system lies with him. This group is also authorized under our emergency plan and bylaw to approve any unbudgeted expenditures without council approval. Those of you who have been through disasters know there's a need for speed, and that approval of finances purchases has to occur quickly. The head of council does sit in as part of our command group and is responsible for advising council on what we are and keeping council up to date on what we are doing. We have a public information team who is kept extremely busy. Any interaction with external agencies, with the exception of York Regional Police and York Paramedic Service, occurs through my position as liaison officer. Most of our external agencies will participate through virtual or hybrid operations. We also have logistics team, which includes a finance officer, administration team, and a strategy team, which number of countries will call planning. These are all representative from subject matter experts across the organization, as well as we have within this group the ability to the thought process for the emergency management team is all the city resources are made available to the emergency immediately and then scale back as the situation resolves, prioritizing what our need is to ensure that our citizens are kept safe. After action reporting is completed by my office and goes to the Emergency Management Program Committee, and those recommendations go on to council for approval. Next slide, please. So our resilience roadmap, 2 really critical components of what we plan to do is raise awareness and public education. Well, this is done under a legislative requirement in my program. Across all departments, we are really building this capability to get out to the public, to build their awareness and education around becoming resilient. And this can be anything from walking safely to school, walking safely at night, winter safety messaging, fire prevention, and my department's campaign of "You're more prepared than you think." While we're increasing our public education, a key component of what I plan to do in the future, and the very, very near future, is actually measure the success of our messaging. Are people actually implementing the information that we are providing them with? Public education only goes so far. We need to understand, is it actually working, and what do we need to do to change our approach? We're also doing proactive planning, and this is with our official plan for land use planning, in which risk-based land use planning clauses are being integrated directly into the document. The draft document is planned to go before council in the fall. And this is a major step forward to ensuring that we are developing smart and developing safe. We are focusing on We do a lot of focus on interagency exercises. This is actually a picture from an exercise we did last year with a local chemical company involving Vaughan Fire and Rescue Service, my department, York Region Paramedics, York Region Police. So doing this interagency collaboration helps build knowledge of each other's processes. It makes us much more effective as responders throughout our community. Advocacy is a major component of what we are doing now. There is plans that from the province to reopen the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act to strengthen it and give more authority. In Canada, emergency management is a bottom-up approach in which much of almost all the responsibility lies with the municipality. And in the event of an emergency, the municipality, once we exhaust all our resources, only then can we make requests to other levels of government for additional assistance. So we want to advocate to ensure that legislation reflects what our needs are in the future. We're also doing proactive planning around what municipal government structure will look like in the future and the implications to public safety and emergency planning, as there is a drive within the province to reassess what current municipal structures are in, and we're watching very closely our neighboring communities as they are removing one level of government and having to kind of go out on their own as single tier governments. So next slide. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Sharon, and Kathy as well. I'd now like to turn it over, last but not least, to our colleagues in Doral, Florida, Aylin Fernandez and Sergio Fernandez.
Hi, everybody. Nice to see you all again. I will present to you the City of Doral governance structure, and my colleague Sergio will present the city roadmap. Next slide, please. Thank you. The City of Doral initial resilience start with the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA. FEMA is a federal agency within the United States Department of Homeland Security, and it is the lead agency in responding to and recovering from the impacts of natural disaster and man-made incidents. Florida is in part of FEMA Region 4 along with other 7 states. At the state government level, emergency planning falls in the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, the FDLE, and the Florida Division of Emergency Management. The state also requires that the initial response to acts of terrorism be in accordance with the Florida Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan. The state of Florida uses an all-event and locally managed approach. Through this concept, the Local Emergency Operations Center, EOC, coordinates and supports all personnel and resources involved in an incident within its jurisdiction. The county EOC is supported by the state EOC. The Miami-Dade County EOC works as a multi-agency coordination center for most disaster incidents, and it will facilitate liaison from local, state, and federal agencies as needed. The Miami-Dade County Emergency and Evacuation Assistance Program provides evacuation assistance to all residents who need specialized transportation or whose medical needs prevent them from evacuating on their own. The City of Doral is also a member of the Miami-Dade County Local Mitigation Strategy. This one documents the planning process and addresses mitigation measures in relation to the hazard risk and vulnerability assessment across Miami-Dade County. At the local government level, the City of Doral has a divisional emergency operations center, which provides a seat and representation inside the county EOC when it's activated. As a divisional EOC, Doral hosts 3 additional cities during activation. In 2006, the City of Doral Council adopted a resolution to incorporate the National Incident Management System and the Incident Command System as part of the City Emergency and Hurricane Procedure Manual. Lastly, the Doral Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan describes all the organizational structure, the roles and the responsibilities, the policies and protocols for providing emergency support. It is designed to be consistent with the National Preparedness Goal, the National Incident Management System, the Incident Command System Guidelines, the National Response Framework, and the Florida Comprehensive Emergency Plan, as well as the Miami-Dade County Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan. And now we'll pass to my colleague Sergio to guide you through the roadmap.
Hello, everybody. So the city's Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan, also known as CEMP, operates as a universal guideline for the city to incorporate in emergency preparation and recovery. The city's Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan is based off the principles and directives set forth by the President of the United States and the agencies below him. It's designed to prevent, protect against, mitigate, respond to, and recover from threats and hazards that pose the greatest risks. Examples of these risks include natural disasters, pandemics, chemical spills, as well as cyber attacks. These directives are designed to be used by all levels of government, from federal to state and local governments. It could also be used by the private sector and nonprofit organizations. Doral's ongoing partnership with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection to train for future hurricanes and flooding demonstrates the city's commitment to the essential of identifying, understanding, and using current future risk scenarios. Hurricanes are one of the main natural disaster threats that we face on an annual basis. Unfortunately, not all hurricanes are created equal. Each hurricane can have varying wind speeds, travel speeds, and rainfall. Working with the Department of Environment Protection allows us to create drainage to prevent flooding while protecting our local plant and animal habitats. The city's Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan is regularly updated to ensure effective preparedness and disaster response. The most recent update was 2022. The CEMP plan is updated as new requirements or conditions are developed. If there are no new updates, then it's reviewed annually. The diagram of the resilience governance structure demonstrates that Doral's emergency preparedness relies on cooperation between various governments and external partnerships. The city has the capacity to reach out to any federal, state, or local agency for assistance. This allows us to gather information and resources at a much higher rate, therefore reducing the time between the start of an emergency and its resolution. Next slide, please. The City of Doral will continue to incorporate the city's resilience profile for the benefit of internal city planning and external public safety. Actionable next steps include conducting orientation workshops on resilience with staff and the City Council, incorporating the resilience profile and ISO 37123 data points into disaster risk reduction and resilience strategies, sharing the City of Doral's resilience profile with other cities and the public, and institutionalizing the resilience profile across all sectors of the city. Next slide. And that concludes our presentation for the City of Doral. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sergio and Aylin. I'll now turn it back to Patricia.
Well, thank you all very, very much. That was so fascinating. I really enjoyed hearing those presentations. It really shows this important relationship between how we govern resilience, that whole multi-level and multi-sectoral coordination is so important, multi-level governance, but also multi-sectoral horizontally across the private sector and others. That came clear in almost all of your presentations. So I think with that point, it's really important to think about this relationship here between evidence-based decision-making, evidence-based assessments of disaster, and financial investment. That bridge between data and evidence-based quantitative measures on resilience and resilience risk is so pivotal for the investor market. So I was thinking about the discussions we've been having with all of you, but also with some of the other cities in our global network around this whole idea of how you drive investment in cities for more resilient infrastructure. And I just want to tell you that we have been really faced with and recognizing very serious budget restraints in many cities coming out of COVID. Budget restraints have become so pivotal in so many cities. The transit fare box in the city of Toronto, for example, is really stretched. We see other revenue sources being very constrained right now, and budgets under pressure. So the WCCD has been thinking about this for the last year and a half or so, and I might have mentioned to most of you, we're developing this new ISO standard on ESG, environment, social governance, and we talked this through at the as a core partner with UNDRR, because we're hearing from cities that they need to build this evidence around ISO 37123 and also the 120 series, but they also need KPIs on ESG, both to support the debenture market, to drive investors into their markets, but also to think about how their city's ESG framework can be strengthened, because companies are increasingly asking about the ESG profile of our cities when they invest and decide to locate. Their shareholders want to know, is this an ESG strong compliant city? So with all of that, we've been building this ESG framework, both for economic investment, for the debenture markets in cities who are issuing bonds. And we're having that discussion. It's being opened now with UNDRR around, I know most cities are thinking about social bonds, green bonds, climate bonds, sustainability bonds, but there's space here for resilience bonds. And I do believe that resilience bonds could be really driving resilient infrastructure investment in cities, whether it's flood control in Doral or various disaster risk reduction around business continuity in Vaughan and other places and other pressures like that. So I'm thinking about this next steps, and I just wanted to put it out there that this webinar, especially today, is starting to bridge in my mind this, how we think about governance and evidence-based assessment and financial investment, and that bridge to the private sector and multi-governance levels, but also horizontal sectors to the private sector investors and the debenture markets. It's quite pivotal going forward. And I just wanted to tell you that we're thinking about that. We're having these discussions. We'd like to stay in touch and talk this through with the 5 cities here. We're hearing it from many of our cities, and this seems like a natural opening from this work that we're in this partnership with UNDRR. So I just wanted to mention that in my closing remarks here, and to say that I'm so appreciative of all your hard, thoughtful presentations that you've made this morning and over the course of these last few weeks. As Sanjaya mentioned, this is really strong work. It really deserves to be aired even further beyond these 5 exchanges that we've had, to really build it out into an open global discussion and put your 5 cities on this resilience map in a bigger way, so that other cities can learn from this work. So we're going to look at next steps, and we're in discussions now with Sanjay and colleagues in Geneva, so, and around the resilience bonds as well. So I'd like to think about our next steps together, and we will probably have a debrief more formally with each of you individually, but maybe as a group we can come together one more time just to talk through the next steps and see what you're thinking. So with that, I know it's already a few minutes after 9. We stuck to the hour pretty well, but just before I close, is there any questions or comments? I know everyone has probably other meetings to get to, but just before we close, is there anything that anyone would like to add? Or Sanjay or Andy from your side, anything? Or shall we just close here? Not seeing anything. Okay, Sanjay, thank you. Anything else? Okay, well, with that, I'd like to thank all of you very, very much. The 5 cities, your leadership has been really instrumental.